Osso Buco is such a classic Italian dish, and for it you need veal, and it must be the veal that comes from the leg or the calf of a calf, if you like, because then you can get the bone with the marrow in it. And what you have to do is braise the meat before you even cook the Osso Buco. So what I like to do is pack it onto a baking sheet and bake it at a very high temperature in the oven rather than frying it in a frying pan. So I pack it in as best I can, and then it's going to go into the oven. And what I do is it sits in the oven for 20 to 25 minutes, and you need a hot oven. I do it at 250 degrees. So the 20 or 25 minutes is going to really depend on how your oven works. Then you need, as the base for your Osso Buco, a sofrito. And that is just the classic combination of onions, carrots, and celery. So it's important that you dice your vegetables in more or less the same sizes. And honestly, the only vegetable that I peel for this is the onions. And then you're going to cube them very lightly, that you don't have to be super small, but you want some sizes that are more or less matching with each other. And so once you've done your onions, I do the carrots. And for the carrots, I like to use small to medium sized carrots rather than the very big ones. And that also makes it easier for me to dice. I cut in half, then into 3, and then cut them up. And for me, that's fine enough. In the sofrito, these vegetables are going to lend their flavor to each other, and that really forms the basis of so much of Italian cooking, this sofrito. So once you have diced your carrots, in goes the celery. And remember that celery, like leeks, likes to have soil in the base. So be very careful with your celery. Wash it carefully, make sure you get rid of all the soil, and in the end I just cut off the ends as well. And again, I'm not doing it super fine. I'm cutting the celery so that the sizes of the pieces are roughly the same as my carrots and my onions. Then into this heavy cast iron pot. I like to use a heavy cast iron pot because that allows the heat to distribute evenly within the cooking process. And you can use it either on the stove or in the oven, whichever is your preferred method of preparation. So once you have fried in olive oil for a few minutes, you then add your white wine. And your white wine, together with the frying, forms this basis of the Osso Buco. Here I'm bringing the veal out of the oven, and my sofrito has been cooking for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And if you look at the color of the meat, the bone has been charred a bit by the high heat, and you've got good color, good braising on your meat. That's going to intensify your flavors. So into your sofrito now goes your tomato paste, and after your tomato paste, you're going to also add I use just tinned tomatoes. It's fine, but you need tomato pieces or passata, whichever is your preference. I like to use the passata because it gives you a smoother finish in the end. Now, with that comes the important herb for this dish, and that's thyme. And don't be shy of your thyme. I use about 1.5 tablespoons for a pot this size, and the thyme is the distinct flavor that comes with this dish. With that, 2 bay leaves in the pot, and then once you've stirred all that together, add your meat back in. You can cook it together for a few minutes before you add your meat in, just to make sure that everything combines nicely. Season it, and then in goes the meat. And when you start adding your meat, layer it nicely so that you've got meat and sofrito intermingled. And at the end you're going to make sure that all the juices that were left in the roasting dish, you pour those into the pot as well, because you don't want to lose any of that flavor. And that is really as simple as it is. Once you've laid it together, make sure that you don't overfill your pot, but I actually like to measure the meat into the pot before I start, just to make sure that I have the right size pot. And when you've stirred everything together, put the lid on it. And then you can make sure that it's simmering if you do it on top of the stove, or put it at 150 in the oven, and just leave it. Leave it for 2 or 3 hours, and the results are fabulous. Hope you enjoy this classic Italian dish.